Consumers want to know the facts about the products they buy. But America's agriculture landscape is not easy to navigate. Between different companies, scientific advancement, government regulations, advertising campaigns, and an unhealthy amount of myth and misconception, anyone would be hard-pressed to make sense of it. That's where Real Ag comes in. From the producers who make your food to the store where you buy the final product and everything in between. This is Real Ag. Cotton is a crop in Kansas that has been growing in popularity with farmers as it has been increasing with production and acreage over the years. In the southern part of Kansas, irrigated cotton is proving to be more cost-effective than corn. Cotton has helped many farmers with conserving the aquifers as well as sustainability and profitability of their farms. Additionally, farmers have been able to fit cotton into their normal rotations with sorghum and soybean crops. We will discuss cotton on this episode of Real Ag. Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.
Cotton is a plentiful crop which many farmers in southern Kansas are turning to. The fibers can be made into a variety of light or heavyweight materials that are suitable to the creation of such items as clothing, home furnishings, as well as other industrial uses. With the first significant cotton crop in Kansas in 1995, producers have increased planting and harvesting cotton dramatically in the state. So how is cotton doing in Kansas right now?
Yeah, I think the cotton acres, it's been a little up and down, but it's pretty prevalent now across south central and southwest Kansas. I'm sure we're over 100,000 acres. And cotton's been a pretty successful crop. I've talked to ranchers, and maybe been a couple years ago now, where he was almost on the Oklahoma border there in southern Kingman County, I think, and he had had quite a bit of rangeland. That's why I was visiting there, but he also had quite a bit of cropland. He was growing different crops. I think he was growing milo and some corn, and I don't think he had any soybeans there, but his best crop was cotton. And so it's become pretty important. It's not a major crop in terms of the number of acres, like when we think about corn and soybeans and sorghum. Those would be the three big ones, but it's a pretty important secondary crop in that part of the state.
It has grown over the last several years. Acres are down a bit this year for a variety of reasons, but a lot of it has been market driven. There have been, the processing cotton is a very specific thing. You can't take it to an elevator like you could take corn or soybeans or milo or wheat. You have to go to a gin to deconstruct cotton into the beneficial products that it produces. We've seen some significant expansions and the construction of new gins in Kansas. That's probably the most positive factor to impact cotton production in the southern tier counties in Kansas, and it's going to trickle over into Oklahoma, over into the Texas Panhandle as well, because it's a mobile crop that can be moved around. But I think we'll continue to see steady to increasing cotton acres, but a lot of it will be driven by the market price.
The herbicide tolerance traits have helped reduce the number of applications and amounts of herbicides used. Among these genetically modified versions of cotton, what are some of the other varieties of cotton, and what is their breeding?
In this corn and soybean growing area, which we have a kind of a combination of that all around us here, there's more acres of the dicamba tolerant cotton southwest, where they have a lot of wheat fallow. To control the weeds in there, there's a tremendous amount of 2,4-D used, and that's about what drove cotton out of the state, was herbicide drift from these other chemical applications. And now that we have these varieties that are tolerant to that, that's why our acreage has gone back up from about 30,000 acres to estimated 195 this year in a matter of about 5 years or 4 years. The companies that are doing the breeding have done a really good job. There's only 4 or 5 major ones. We've probably got about 12 to 18 varieties really that will do well up here. We're not I always refer to Kansas as being part of the cotton bracelet, or a bit of the buckle off the belt. We're in the top 10 for acreage in the nation right now. And this little piece of Kansas and Oklahoma, on the northern border of Oklahoma where they didn't used to grow cotton, you put the acreage of those two together and they're in the top 8 or 7 states in the nation.
Cotton fibers are classified into 3 groups based on length and appearance. The first group, called the long staple cottons, include the fine, lustrous fibers and types of the highest quality most often found in Sea Island, Egyptian, and Pima cottons. The second group, or the standard, medium staple cotton, found in American upland. And the third group, or short staple, coarse cotton, are used in carpet, blankets, and expensive fabrics, and often blended with other fibers. Cotton is a perennial plant cultivated as a shrubbery annually. The quality of the fibers is influenced by climate and conditions, and are best obtained with high moisture levels from rainfall or irrigation during the growing season, and a dry, warm picking period. Often, it is picked as soon as the bolls open to avoid damage from wind or rain. But what is optimal weather for cotton, and what is the cotton season?
Cotton is a lover of heat. It runs on a heat unit calendar, which is basically the average daily temperature minus 60 degrees, and we accumulate those heat units during the summer until about the time we get into flowering stage, and then all bets are off with us. We'll crank along the hutch area where we're at. We'll see normally about a 23 to 2400 heat units. It takes about 1400 to 1500 heat units to actually get cracked, to get bolls to open, and they're going to open at different stages because they developed at different times. So you've got a period of time there where you've got to get those bolls open, because if they don't, you're not going to harvest anything. You got to get them to the point where the cotton fiber inside them is mature, so you can get them to open, and if not, you've got mush. But no, our weather down south central Kansas, we can turn up the heat. Our worst issue can be a cloudy, cooler weather, which is very comfortable in early August. I really enjoyed that last week, other than it was delaying my cotton development down here. So, we saw it kind of slow down. Usually we will add a flower on about every 3 days, and last week it looked like we got about 2 flowers. Maybe we didn't accumulate very many heat units. We didn't develop 2 full flowers in an 8-day period between the times we looked at it. We're going to turbinate it before we harvest it. Memorial Day is close to that. That's the sweet spot in there. Probably the 20th, actually. It's about a 2-week period. It's really preferred. Our insurance cutoff date, I believe, is June 5th for most of the state, and we've got a June 2nd and a June 10th planting date out there this year, and that one of June 10th is just starting to flower right now. This one's almost done, and that one's just getting started. But we'll see stuff starting to open. Our effective flowering will generally go through the 15th. About this time, give us another week in August, and we'll be about done with effective blooms from normal planting dates anyway. We'll be stripping cotton, and usually it's not till early November, maybe by Thanksgiving. And it just depends on what the weather does at the end of the season. If we can get a stiff freeze and have our boll opener and defoliant on prior to that, those bolls will open up. They've got to open up and then kind of extrude a little bit, open up wide, and so that it makes for the stripping to go easier, the harvest to be easier, and have a cleaner lint package going into the gin, so we're not taking trash docks and that kind of thing, and also make sure it's fully developed. But we'll usually get to start hauling to the gins, or at least stripping our cotton in the middle of November, and that can run, unfortunately, sometimes all the way into the next spring. But we generally have good open weather through here, through Kansas in the winter, or late fall and winter. But we'd like to be done with our cotton harvest by early December at the latest. I'd like to be done by Thanksgiving, but that usually doesn't happen because we don't have enough machines to do it. And it just depends. And then we got to get it ginned.
The cultivation of cotton can be traced back as far as prehistoric times. It clothed the people of Egypt, India, and China hundreds of years before the Christian era. During the Industrial Revolution, there was a great boost to cotton manufacturing as textiles emerged. Further manufacturing was improved with the invention of the cotton gin. Before this, cotton fibers had to be pulled from the seed by hand. By the mid-19th century, cotton had become the backbone of America in the South, and the cultivation and harvesting of cotton was the lead occupation of slaves. In Kansas, cotton has been produced across southern counties as early as the 1800s and early 20th century, though in limited capacities until 1995, with the introduction of the Farm Bill of that same year and its freedom to farm provisions, which allowed cotton to be grown on all previously restricted program acres. The Kansas Cotton Association was charted in 2003 by producers and ginners from across the state for the purpose of promotion and education. What else can we learn about the history of cotton in Kansas?
It started by a couple growers up by Sterling during the 80s, and they pretty much started it. One grower down in this area, in the Winfield area, visited with those guys and they planted the seed in his mind to grow cotton, and he and his son started growing it down here, and then it kind of, over the years, it's grown into something much bigger. It's been hanging on for years. Since the early 90s, there have been small numbers of acres, but it's been pretty small. It's fluctuated between the years, and only until these last 4 years or so has it really taken off. What was interesting is when I moved to Kansas from Texas, I immediately compared the number of heat units and rainfall that we have here versus Lubbock, and Lubbock is considered to be the largest cotton producing region in the United States. We have more heat and more rainfall than they do. So by that formula, heat and moisture produces cotton, good cotton. So we're at a very nice sweet spot actually to produce good cotton.
When the Freedom to Farm Act was passed through Congress, many of our growers in south central Kansas started looking at that. So we had over 1,000 acres that first year across the southern part of the state. We'd actually had a gin that had been established at Sterling. Never really got to functioning well, but the gins came in the late 90s. The first one was down at Winfield. Has been a permanent one. Until that time, they were hauling cotton down to Yukon, Oklahoma, out west of Oklahoma City. And at that point, we had enough acreage building up. We were in the 5,000 to 6,000 acres range, and most of it was over in that Winfield, Kansas area, Winfield and Wellington. So it made sense, because it cost about $2 a loaded mile to haul an 11,000 pound module or 22,000 pound module to the gin on a truck, and at that point it paid to do that. So we have 4 gins in Kansas. We have the infrastructure to handle, at that time I thought about 150 to 200,000 acres of cotton. They all doubled their size 2 years ago. And according to USDA this year, we've got 195,000 acres planted in Kansas. I'm not sure that number's right, but it's even if it's not quite that high, it probably could be a record year. Our crop hasn't fared as well quite this year, though this looks pretty good here. We have a lot of uneven stands. Most of the condition has been a little fair to good is about the best we've done on it, and it's been kind of an almost even split between fair to good. It's going to be I think we've got the potential for a pretty good year. We have raised good cotton in Kansas before, and it gives guys an alternative to some of the other crops. We drove by a lot of sorghum and soybeans on the way down. Soybeans have a little tougher time in this part of the world. I talked about that heat that we get. Soybeans are a little touchier around heat, and cotton loves it. They can both fit in this area, but cotton has given guys a good alternative.
To successfully cultivate cotton, you must have a long frost-free period with plenty of sunshine and a moderate rainfall. The area known as the Southern Plains in the United States is the greatest cotton-growing region in the world. Dryland cotton is successfully grown in this region, though consistent yields are only produced with heavy reliance on irrigation. Cotton production promotes and enhances biodiversity and biological cycles. The cotton industry relies heavily on chemicals such as fertilizer, insecticides, and herbicides, although some farmers are moving towards other organic models of production. More and more Kansas farmers are switching their crops to cotton, as it is shown to provide huge advantages over grain crops. Irrigated cotton is popular in Kansas, as the eastern part of the state is mainly dryland. These periods of drought have not slowed the production of cotton in the area. Cotton has primarily replaced wheat and grain sorghum acres in Kansas as the cost of irrigation has increased due to the depletion of the Ogallala Aquifer. Once harvested, cotton can be used to produce items such as clothing, rope, and a variety of materials as well. Cottonseed itself is used to produce cottonseed meal, which is used generally to feed livestock. Cottonseed hulls can be added to roughage for rations to dairy cattle. The cottonseed can also be used for cottonseed oil, which, after refinement, can be consumed by people like any other vegetable oil. The largest producers of cotton are India and China. The largest exporters of raw cotton are the United States and Africa. Total international trade of cotton is estimated to be more than $12 billion. Taking all of this information into account, is cotton a profitable crop to grow in Kansas?
You can break even fairly quickly. You got to get it to that point, and then the return potential once you hit your break even and cost of, or get your cost of investments covered. Once you're above that, there's very good profit potential with cotton. The big thing I think when you start growing cotton is to talk to somebody at one of the gins right away, become very familiar with how it's growing, find a good, competent consultant. As with most anything else, you can do a lot of extra inputs on the crop that may not be necessary, and just getting yourself educated. You need to know what you're doing out there too, or you need to know that the person you're working with knows what they're doing.
Well, the final product is priced according to pounds of finished lint per acre. And that's generally assigned a loan rate value, a guaranteed loan rate value. The government determines that based on the quality of their cotton. And most of the growers in Kansas are part of a marketing pool that's based out of Lubbock, Texas, the Plains Cotton Cooperative Association. There are some other options, but that's the dominant market. And so the pricing then, that pool typically adds to the price that they get based on their quality. So if their base grade by quality is 52 cents a pound, hopefully the pool will be able to add 10 or 15 cents a pound, but with the market as it is today, we could only hope that would happen. That probably won't happen this year, because prices of all the commodities are depressed, and cotton is too. It's graded based on the quality of the fiber, and every individual bale is graded on its own merits. And it's graded on the color of the fiber, how white is it, how long the fibers are, how strong the fibers are, the maturity of the fiber, which is a measure of the mass of the fiber, contaminants such as leaf bits and things like that, so that plays into it, and then finally uniformity. So all of those factors come together, and if you have a chart of the prices, I forget how many combinations there are. There's like 3,200 combinations if you put all those together. So there's a lot that goes into grading the quality.
Cotton is not without its troubles, though, as there are many threats to cotton. Several different species of pests can attack cotton. A properly timed planting practice, as well as other cultural practices, such as selective breeding, can help reduce damage to the plant from unwanted pests. Cotton is not immune to diseases either, as various pathogenic fungi, bacteria, and viruses can take their toll on the plant. The breeding of different cotton varieties resistant to some of these effects have shown promise. What are the challenges of growing cotton, and what should new growers know before producing cotton?
It's just, if there's somebody new going into it, they need to do their homework, and it's been very profitable for the ones that stayed in it.
The unpredictability of the weather, and see, I've been talking about how good the weather is. Now there are aspects of it that make it challenging, and most of that comes in planting time, which is usually May. There's often a roller coaster of temperatures and precipitation. And then at harvest time in the fall, we don't really know when the crop will be terminated by the first killing freeze, because that date seems to move around a lot. So we're trying to insert a successful crop within that window between sometime in May and sometime around mid-October. So if everything cooperates, we'll have a great crop, and if not, it might be short or it might be a little more challenged. There are challenges with cotton that they don't find in other crops regarding equipment and the fact that it needs to be ginned, it needs to be processed to be worth anything to them. The high cost of production, there are risks involved, of course. So all these things make it pretty tough for a grower to decide to try it, but it's been worthwhile for the vast majority of them. Cotton grows on a wide range of soil types, so they need to know there's kind of their soil type, but I'd be willing to bet that whatever they have, it would probably work. Maybe not, but probably. I think just if they can grow some other crop in it successfully, I can predict that they can successfully grow cotton as well. I think they need to get all the information they can, and one primary piece of advice is if you do decide to grow cotton, make sure you have a field scout or consultant looking at it. One of the aspects of cotton production is it is a lot more management intensive than the other crops, and there are weed situations or insect pest situations that need to be addressed timely, or they will affect your yield or your outcome or whatever. So you've got to have somebody watching your cotton that knows about cotton. So field scouting is, I think, vital to that.
Formerly a labor-intensive process, cotton harvesting has benefited greatly from mechanized harvesting methods. Machines, such as the stripper baler, have cut the harvest labor team by more than half. The cotton baler strips the cotton and rolls it into bales. Each bale measures approximately 17 cubic feet and weighs as much as 4,500 pounds. From there, the bales are loaded onto trucks and taken to the gin. Cotton gins have also become an indispensable part of the cotton harvesting process. Over the years, the gins in Kansas have expanded capacity to keep up with the production of cotton in the region. What equipment is necessary for cotton production?
You typically need a row crop sprayer. You'll need to have a planter that has cotton plates on it. Some people have tried to use bean plates, and that really doesn't work very well. So cotton plates, row crop sprayer, and the biggest challenge is probably the harvesting. And there's people that have bought their own machines, and currently there's new technology out there. It's just a few years old of these new baler strippers that they're incredible machines, but they're incredibly expensive. But the harvesting is a challenge. There are many people though that like and want to do custom harvesting. So if you don't want to purchase your own machine, which many people starting up don't want to do, there are custom harvesters available to harvest their cotton.
Cotton seems to have a bright future for Kansas, the world, and even outerworldly. China brought cotton seeds to the moon's far side, and on January 15, 2019, China announced that a cottonseed sprouted, the first truly outerworldly plant in history. What does the future look like for cotton?
I think it will. I think it's here. Well, it was here to stay before, but I think cotton is going to be it's going to be a rotational crop in Kansas. I think it will continue to have a growth, it's kind of going to be, economics is going to dictate how fast the growth is, but we're getting, I don't know, we probably got, I'm guessing 30 to 50 round balers in our area now.
These last number of years, cotton has done exceptionally well because our yields have been truly exceptional. So by my numbers, we've had 7 good years in a row that I would consider above average. So I'm not sure when that becomes the real average, but that's where we are today, and we have been these last number of years. Unless something really changes for it to set that back, I expect the acres will increase. They'll continue to do so. It certainly looks like it. It looks like it could happen. Of course, no one can predict the future and everything, but I think there's a good future for cotton in Kansas.
From the earliest days of human civilization to the moon, cotton has been an incredibly important crop to the world and especially humanity. Only time will tell how Kansas farmers adjust to using this useful and profitable crop as we move into the future. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Real Ag on cotton. As always, you can check out this and other episodes of Real Ag on SmokyHillsPBS.org. From the producers at Smoky Hills PBS, this has been Real Ag. Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.